Hey, this is Jay.
And this is Chelsea.
Welcome to the Shifting Perceptions podcast.
We are bringing you inspiration to live a more creative lifestyle because our favorite people are the ones that choose the path less traveled. Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 26 of the Shifting Perceptions podcast. This is Chelsea Alders. If you have ever tried to learn guitar and turned to YouTube, you have most definitely come across our next guest, Marty Schwartz. With almost 1.3 million YouTube subscribers, Marty is the guy teaching the world to play guitar. Marty's YouTube career has taken him on such a wild ride. He has been on the radar of big names like No Big Deal, a shout out on the Joe Rogan podcast, and people like Jack Black, and shared a stage with bands like Mo, Slightly Stoopid, and Blues Traveler. We get to talk to him about teaching lessons to actor Jason Statham and how he recreated himself after losing his job as a music teacher into this crazy successful YouTube star. I love the accessibility of this interview and how open and honest Marty is during questions about his journey. It took some very basic lessons and adjustments for him to start seeing his following grow, and listening to his interview is going to have you reconsider your day job for sure. Marty is fun and goofy and so happy to share. Hopefully you can take some small lessons from this one, or you can be like me and just fall into the fascinating story of a guy that liked to teach guitar and that somehow struck gold in the saturated world of YouTube.
Hey everyone, this is Jay Alders. If you haven't done so already, would you please click subscribe on your podcast player so you don't miss the next episode? When I'm not in podcast mode, I am an artist, and I released a new ocean-inspired painting this week. It's called Sequel. I really would love to share it with you. I expanded my techniques on this one, and I'd love to know what you think. If you head to jalders.com or look up Jay Alders on social media, you will see it. And if you'd like a limited edition print for yourself or as a gift, you can do so. In real life, Chelsea is a birth doula, and you can find her on ommamasdoulas.com or on Instagram at Chelsea Alders. We love hearing from you guys. You can find Shifting Perceptions podcast on social media or leave us a message on shiftingperceptionspodcast.com.
Let's jump in.
What's up, you guys?
What up, Marty? So, dude, we are, I'm especially really excited to talk to you. I know Chelsea is also, but I'm a guitar nerd, and I can't remember how many years ago I first started learning from you, as have so many people around the world. It's got to be such a trip, and I'm really excited to not only connect on a personal level here, but I really want to hear the story about how this came out, because I'm sure everyone that plays guitar at some point has come across you. You have like over 1.2 million subscribers on YouTube, which is like more than a lot of the bands that you teach. Like, you have more subscribers than Pearl Jam and Jack Johnson and Dave Matthews Band. How the F did this happen?
I think those guys are doing all right, though.
Yeah, they're probably
okay.
banking, I'm sure, but you're more. You got more people looking at you on YouTube, and that's definitely worth some praise, I'd say.
Oh yeah, no, it's amazing. Dream come true kind of stuff. I been a musician for so long, and you're trying to make a living, and the thing I get to do now didn't even exist as a career when I was first dreaming of being a musician for a living, or dreaming of a career in music. The thing I do didn't even exist, and yet it is like the perfect job for like my skill set and what I like to do and what I'm passionate about. I wouldn't trade my particular job with, being in one of those big bands. Maybe Pearl Jam.
I was going to ask you, like, you wouldn't trade if one of those bands was like, dude, we need a new guitarist.
Well, I always joke that like the Stones are not going to call. You know what I mean? Because I've been asked that question, and I don't mean like, oh, I could do it, but
you are getting old. You never know.
Yeah, no, all those guys, like, when you're that big of a band, I think they have like someone that they're already like probably good friends with that would come in and fill in. I'm just being pragmatic,
Fair
but
enough.
yeah, Pearl Jam, I would say yes to. Red Hot Chili Peppers, I would say yes to. Like stuff like that.
We're putting it out there for you, Marty.
Yeah, throwing it out there.
So, Eddie, when you're listening, Marty's looking for a gig.
Yeah.
Or like the Eddie Vedder like solo band, like just when he's doing some big charity thing, I'd do it for free.
All right.
Fair
He's
enough.
so good. We've seen him solo. Such a good
I got
show.
tickets for the Stones for June. I can't freaking wait.
Nice. Oh my
Yeah.
God, that's amazing. I'm kind of like digressing from the original answer, but I guess
sorry.
all
Go
I'm
ahead.
saying is
That's
just
okay.
like my skill set and what I love to do, I have the dream gig. And then on top of it, I'm making a living doing it, but then I get all this feedback from people that I'm helping them, right? You know, like, and that just is an amazing it's an amazing feeling. I'm really just trying to keep this going. That's like my goal.
Yeah. Well, so how did this actually start? Like, were you a teacher, a guitar player? Like, which part of
Yeah.
this was the beginning?
Yeah. Well, let's see. I originally went to college to do film.
Really? Okay.
But I was playing guitar and I loved guitar, but I wasn't one of those guys that was like the natural that everyone's like, oh, you're going to be a famous guitar player. Like it was just a great, fun hobby that I was passionate about. But about halfway through college, I switched to music major. You know, I just couldn't stop. It was this destined call to destiny. You know, I couldn't stop playing music. So I just started right out of college. I was in kind of like a corporate band with older guys. So I was able to pay my rent and make a living right out of college, just playing in like a 70s funk cover band kind of thing, nightclubs and weddings and stuff like that.
That's a tough gig.
Yeah, but when you're 22, it was the most fun ever because I didn't have to get a job. You know, everyone's graduating college and they start thinking about the rest of their life and applying for jobs and resumes. And I was just like, oh, well, there's no rush. I'm making a little fun little living, getting to play guitar. And, you know, it was an exciting time, but there's no growth there. So eventually I started teaching guitar as my day job. Once again, hey, what can I do where I don't have to get a job? So I could teach guitar in the day and gig at night. And then like in the year 2000, I ended up in San Diego. So I grew up in Orange County, but ended up in San Diego in 2000 because I auditioned for this band called Wise Monkey Orchestra, based in Ocean Beach, which is where Slightly Stupid's from. So we can talk about the Slightly Stupid connection.
Definitely, yeah.
We'll talk about that. But basically, I ended up in that music scene, and I was in this band called Wise Monkey, and so I just kind of made a new little niche for myself in North San Diego. So I was playing in this band Wise Monkey. We were touring. We were also, you know, did really well in Southern California back then. And then I taught tons of guitar. And so that was basically from 2000 to now. That was kind of the job trajectory, was just like gig as much as possible, teach as many lessons as I can. You know, I'm married. Back, you know, in 2000, I didn't have kids yet, but I have 2 kids. So, you know, it was just I started to think, okay, like how can I have a kind of like a steady life, but still kind of do the music thing for a living. So
yeah, the gigging thing is really hard with young kids, like so hard.
Yeah. Oh yeah. And when my daughter was a baby, I was gigging all weekend, all the time, and that was hard. And I feel like when my daughter was born, I think I went to a gig, you know, within 12 hours of her being born.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
But I mean, honestly, it was gig to gig, paycheck to paycheck. It wasn't like I loved that gig so much that I had to, you know, leave the baby. It was like literally like,
I need
there's
the money.
rent.
Yeah.
There's rent. There's bills. And now my wife isn't, you know, working. So now that's like, you know, that was my role.
Of course. Yeah.
Yeah. And so where I end up now with getting to do this for a living and the whole YouTube and the internet and all that, let's see, my daughter was born in 2005, and that's when I got a new MacBook Pro and started editing video of my daughter, like baby videos, to send to my mom and stuff and my family. And that's when I kind of got the bug again with the video editing and all that.
Mm-hmm.
So that was kind of a perfect storm, because I started to get really into GarageBand and iMovie, and just started becoming more aware of computers, the internet, using them creatively as a creative tool.
And merging those two loves of yours together.
Yeah. And then YouTube, I think, came out around 2005. And my mom lived up in Orange County, and I was making these cute little videos. And I mean, I did a video where like I'm using like Star Wars music and lightning and the Star Wars crawl, just like doing funny stuff, just for the family, like, you know, just because I was having fun learning that stuff.
Yeah.
But I used YouTube way back. My first YouTube channel even was right at the very beginning of YouTube, because I was using it to host videos of my daughter, like taking her first steps and stuff like that. Because you couldn't send a video file through an email. The files were too big. So I started to use YouTube way early as just like hosting my own videos to then send a link to. And then what was interesting is I started making little clips in my guitar lessons, and then putting those clips on YouTube of guitar lessons with private students. And one day I titled one of the videos. Usually I would title the video with the kid's name or the student's name, because the video was just made for them. It wasn't something that was for like public consumption. I was just hosting videos from guitar lessons. So I have an easy way for the students to be able to practice along with. Does that make sense?
Yeah,
Absolutely.
totally makes sense.
That was like my big idea. That was my big innovative idea. And that was more like a little bit later, like 2007.
I love how organically this all happened, because I just assumed it was like very like thought out. And I mean, you seem like such a great marketing and branding guy. I just assumed like from the get-go, like I'm going to build an empire on YouTube.
Well, let's say this. In 2007, when I was just starting to put videos up, I couldn't tell you one thing about marketing or anything in that realm. Or sales and marketing was like what I always avoided, because that's kind of more my dad. And my dad's cool, but I was always like kind of wanted to be an artist. And I thought that sales and marketing was just not what I would ever be good at. But yeah, it was completely organic. So I do remember very specifically, I taught this song. Guitar Hero, the game, was really popular, which was great as a guitar teacher back then, because these kids would, be in 5th or 6th grade and say, I want to learn Mississippi Queen by Mountain. I'd be like, how do you know that song? What? You're like in 5th grade, but it's like, oh, it's from Guitar Hero. So that was really cool. But I remember that particular song, and I made a video for this kid. And for whatever reason, I titled the video How to Play the Intro to Mississippi Queen by Mountain for Chase, blah, blah, blah. And just that little twist of doing the band name and the song title first, it got way more views than the other videos I had put up on that channel. And so then that was a little light bulb moment. Oh, okay, like other people will watch these as well.
Yeah.
And then I really remember there was a time where I was teaching Stairway to Heaven constantly, and I was just kind of burned out on teaching it. And so I remember, hey, I'll just make a video on Stairway to Heaven, and I'll just tell my students when they ask if they want to learn it that, hey, let's learn something else today, but I have a video. You can check the video, So it just did start to become this slowly kind of evolving thing. But it was all about serving, I guess, marketing too, but really as a guitar teacher to get more students. There was no like business and plan.
Can I ask just a teeny tiny little tangent?
Please.
Is there really like no better song for beginners than Stairway to Heaven? Like, what is it about that?
It's freaking epic.
It is iconic. Yeah. It's not a great beginner song to learn.
Like Nirvana would be a better beginner.
Oh, Nirvana. It's like, so being the older sister of a brother that was like has an
Yeah.
OCD personality, like those two songs on repeat. Like I just don't understand why it's always those two
Like
songs.
Come As You Are and
Yeah.
Stairway to
Come
Heaven.
As You Are and
Yeah.
Stairway to
Well,
Heaven.
well, it's not the number one like guitar song anymore.
Okay.
Since I do this for a living, I know what the number one guitar song now.
I'm afraid to even know. I'm afraid to find out. What is it?
It's not too bad. It's
Okay.
Metallica, Nothing Else Matters.
Oh, sweet.
Oh,
okay.
okay.
I thought you were going to say, like, I don't know,
Nickelback?
Justin Bieber or something.
Nickelback. Hoobastank? Is that what we're doing now?
Hoobastank, nice.
God, Metallica is so freaking good.
Oh yeah, no, they're. It's funny because I'm doing these new videos, Marty versus Marty, where I take,
saw
like,
them, man. You're so freaking funny, dude.
It's so
thanks,
good. I
dude.
just watched my first one
Oh my
today.
god, I really appreciate that because it's out of the zone.
You are
You
such
know?
a wacko. I love it.
I have to give credit to the guys that are producing that though, but Made in Network in Nashville. But thank you. Anyway, what I was saying is it has to do with Metallica. Is I have all these, iconic things that you can compare, like Nirvana versus Pearl Jam or the Beatles versus the Stones, but there's nothing that parallels Metallica. So I was trying to figure out who I would do Marty versus Marty with Metallica in there, because you have like people want Megadeth because Dave Mustaine was in Metallica and got fired and then started Megadeth. But Megadeth, they're awesome, but they're not anywhere near as iconic as Metallica. So the closest one I have is Iron Maiden.
And that's not even close. No offense, Iron Maiden fans.
Yeah, but so like, what is it?
I think if like isn't one. I think if System of a Down kept it up, they could have been up there, but I don't know what happened to them.
Yeah. No, you're right. A good tangent. I like the tangent.
We can do this for a very long time.
Yeah, no, I like it. But basically, I'll tell you, just as far as the story, the one thing I left out is that I was an elementary music school teacher.
Oh, okay. That's what I was wondering, because I was like, you weren't just doing lessons. It felt like you were like a teacher. Okay.
So right around that same time that my daughter was a little baby, you got a child and responsibility. It's time to grow up, Marty.
Sweet child of mine.
Yeah, exactly. And it found me. I wasn't looking for it, but anyway, I ended up teaching elementary school music for 3 years, 2005 to 2008. It was really draining, but really rewarding. And then also doing that, I got so many new guitar students because I was the trusted music teacher at the school. So anyone from that area that wanted guitar lessons, basically I became the guy. So I really, became a full-time guitar teacher right around 2005. And then 2008, the economy crashed, and I got laid off from the teaching job, and I lost some students as well because their parents were having difficulties with jobs as well, all that thing, everyone was cutting out the lessons. So I got called into the elementary school. I got laid off, and I was really bummed out because I was kind of like thinking about going down that path career-wise, even more into maybe elementary school, like teaching.
Yeah.
And so I was super bummed, and I consciously made a decision on that drive home, which is probably about a 15-minute drive. Okay, I'm going to start making tons of YouTube videos because I need students right now.
So at that point, had you actually even made a penny on YouTube itself?
No.
Okay.
No. And for years, there wasn't a way to make money on YouTube. You use it as your marketing tool.
Right.
You basically ask people to do stuff outside of YouTube to help you make a living. Now it's different. It's a totally different world now. But back then it was, you just used it basically to get attention, to get yourself as, get, whether it be lead generation or people to follow you on a newsletter or come to a website to buy something from you. It's like that, and a very small percentage are actually going to do that. But it was back then, especially, it was definitely enough. But I got laid off, drove home, and I made a cover of Don't Let Me Down by the Beatles. That was my first conscious, like, I'm going to start marketing myself on YouTube, like where I was actually in the video and going, okay, I got to figure something out.
Right.
And I started to, up my game basically. and it was in my garage. And then I started, long story short, I did start to get some views, and then I learned how to, how it can be a business, YouTube, and how you can make a living and all, selling stuff. I already explained what it is. But then, I just have rode the wave, and then officially started my own company, I guess you could say, Marty Music, close to 4 years ago. And that's been 100% my focus now for 4 years. And yeah, I'm super happy with it.
So talk about, because I feel like when we come to social media, YouTube, all that stuff, you can sort of understand these big moments when. So talk about those first videos when you're like, yes, I got 100 views versus when that shift started happening, when you're like, oh my God, I just got 10,000. Like, when did those big jumps happen?
Well, I definitely remember looking at big YouTubers back in 2008 and thinking, how does someone get 1 million views? Like, what is that even like? I definitely remember that feeling. I also remember getting 10s and 15s of views originally. And then when I changed the title, which now I didn't know at the time, but that concept, search engine optimization, SEO, at the time it was a total accident, but I titled it with the artist's name and the title of the song first in the title.
Yeah.
All of a sudden it got a few hundred views. And so then that was one big turning moment where I was like, okay, there's something to that. And then the more feedback you get, the more you double down on what you're learning from the people who are writing to you, like, oh, I knew it was you because your hat was in the thumbnail and I was looking for you. So you're like, okay, a happy accident, and that created this little kind of silhouette in those early thumbnails. You couldn't make a custom thumbnail back then. It would just make one for you. So the fact that I was wearing this goofy hat, people started to recognize that. And then I realized, that could be a branding thing. But I would say, I think I did some kind of holiday lesson or something. I don't quite remember. Like, maybe started to get thousands of views. I have some conscious memory of that.
Yeah.
But honestly, once it the switch flipped from, this cute little YouTube thing to 2008, where I was like, I got to make something happen. I just kind of put my head down, and then next thing I knew, it was big pretty fast.
So really, it was your hyper focus that really changed the most, you think?
I made a conscious decision to start doing YouTube, to really do it in 2008. Yeah.
Are you the type of guy that, I don't know, we are very spiritual and believe in the law of attraction and manifesting and all that. I'm not sure where you stand in that hippy dippy spectrum, but are you the kind of guy that you just put your head down and manifest it, and you're like, hey, I have 2 kids to feed, I gotta make this work, and just manifest it and put this to a vision? How'd that take place for you?
I think I was open to all of it and any of it. And even today, I think I'm probably, sometimes I'm super into the law of attraction. I know there's something to it, no doubt. But I have 2 sides to me where they're arguing, just like in that Marty versus Marty on that. But let's put it this way. When I was really struggling to make a living, I wrote myself a check, which I think Jim Carrey did. I think I'd seen Jim Carrey talk about it, where he, was totally down and out, and he wrote himself a $20 million check for a movie, and he'd sit up at the top of the Hollywood sign and visualize it.
Yeah.
And I definitely did that, and it definitely did come true. And I've definitely written things on a vision board that I want to happen. And it's interesting because I was definitely doing it before YouTube and before my career that I'm doing now. But even back then, I was constantly visualizing like just making something happen.
It's so cool. Well, so let's talk about what that looks like now. So when you release one of your like normal teaching videos, what can you expect as far as views?
Like how many views it's going to get?
Yeah.
It's weird. I have like a very slow burn, which I've noticed other YouTubers, I see like someone that has as many subscribers as I have, they might get like 100,000 views in 1 or 2 days on their new release. But I'm releasing a video almost every day. And what I find is that I have a long tail, meaning they get views for a long period of time, but kind of like at a slower rate than I've seen a lot of other YouTubers with my sub number, with my stats or whatever. So I don't know if it's good or bad. Of course, I see some of these guys come out with some video and it gets 100,000 views the next day. Not even guitar, like just let's say someone that has 1 million subscribers. And then mine comes out and it's, could get like 10,000 views in one day, which is amazing. I'm not complaining, but I'm just fascinated with how it all works. But I study my analytics like crazy. And my number one performing video right now was released on the first day of the channel launching. Like when I launched Marty Music, like less than 3 years ago, the actual channel, like it was, a business being worked on before the channel launch, but
yeah,
Marty Music launched less than 3 years ago with 100 videos on the first day. Like, so in other words, I had been uploading videos for about 3 months before I was going to actually release the channel to the world to make like a impact that there would be 100 videos on it. And so one of those, I did like 10 beginner acoustic lessons, like lesson number 1, your very first guitar lesson, lesson number 2, blah, blah, blah. And that lesson number 1, your very first guitar lesson, that's my number 1 producing video almost every day. And it was released on the first day of the channel. So a lot of YouTubers don't get that. They get that big explosion and then people move on.
That's so interesting. Video. But I mean, that makes sense because the way that people are going to search for that type of content, it's going to come back to the beginning and then work through it. It's similar to sometimes with podcast stuff too, because it's like, oh, I suddenly like this podcast. I'm going to go back to the beginning and see what it's been doing. So it's an interesting thing to see.
Yeah. And there's this whole YouTube algorithm, which once again, when I was first even getting a lot of views on YouTube, I didn't even know what that term meant. But when I started Marty Music, there was a lot of strategy behind it. And so, it's really about that video that I'm talking about, that beginner acoustic. When it comes to the YouTube algorithm, basically people are searching for a video. And when they get to that one, they engage in it for a long period of time, telling YouTube that it's a good video to suggest to another person. And then it learns from itself on the search results. And then it has this compound growth. And then it's owned by Google. So you have the Google search that's connected to it as well. So it's almost like out on its own, like it's its own thing growing within itself. And that's a beautiful thing.
As a fellow creative entrepreneur, I know I could speak from my experience that a lot of times it's really hard to kind of balance it all. Like you're talking about analytics and marketing and algorithms, and I too have to like follow a lot of that. And I'm wondering if you can give people advice on how to keep your craft like fresh and keep the magic alive when you're still trying to like juggle the rest of it. Like there's not, it's a totally different part of your brain to be sitting on YouTube looking at the analytics and figuring out the SEO and like how I can market this video better. And then it's like, okay, well, I'm still Marty that loves to play guitar, and like I'm sure you have experiences of burnout and just I don't want to do this today. How do you kind of get through that, and how do you keep the magic so it's still fun for you?
Well, the number one thing I would say I'm super driven. I have a family. Marty Music's only 3 years old, so I have to prove that I can make it happen as one of the elder statesmen now in this field. So I'm definitely driven, but on top of that, as far as technique, is to try and be 2 or 3 weeks ahead of my release schedule. So I'm never totally under the gun of like, what do I need to think of to put out tomorrow? Does that make sense?
Yeah, you kind of
not related to what you're saying, like with your art, but for me, it's like I'm today after we're done, I'm going to be thinking about what I need to release like next Wednesday.
Do you make space for just playing guitar, like just for fun, or it's like when you're done with your videos and done work, you're like, I just want to like get away from it?
My workload's pretty intense now,
Yeah.
and it's not going to be forever. Like I'm still building up this kind of library of content, and while I'm still driven to do it, I'm going to do it.
Sure.
The stuff I learned to teach is typically something kind of fun. So it just feels great. Like the amount of guitar I play, it's perfect.
Yeah.
And I'm always maximizing too. Like, like I was getting tons of requests to teach a Fish song, which I grew up in college, like totally being into Fish and all that.
Yeah, Fish is awesome. I saw you release that. I was stoked.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, but so like I was getting tons of requests for Fish, and I hadn't done one mainly because there wasn't that like one iconic Fish song to really teach. So I'd be like, oh, I want to teach a Fish song, but I don't know which one to teach. And so finally I was just like, oh, what one do I dig that's not too hard? And that's why I picked Sample in a Jar. But so then I'm sitting there going through some song that I used to love that I never had learned, and now I'm learning it. So I'm like thinking about Trey's technique while I'm learning it. I'm playing it. I'll loop it. I'll do my own solo over it while I'm in the process. So, it's totally that creative thing going.
And like when you're like pulling up new songs, like are you at the point, I'm sure you are, but I just want to understand it. Are you at the point where you could just pick any random song and you already know how to play it, or does it actually take work?
It takes work, but yeah, it takes work. Just because I'm doing so many, I just did, it'll already be out when this comes out, but I was just going all the way through Black Hole Sun, which I had known in the past, right? So I had nailed maybe like 10 years ago, but I mean, it felt like I was pretty much relearning it.
Well, have you ever felt like you're also like under the stress of a million eyes watching? So have you ever had one that you release and they're like, you played this chord wrong? Or like, do you get pulled apart like that? You do? Yeah,
for sure. What I would say is, I'm really, really lucky. Like the positive to negative ratio is astronomical.
Yeah.
I have to just keep it in perspective. But no, like I've legitimately made mistakes before in a lesson where like, oh, it was a different chord. Oh, that person was right. It's happened. And I'll, probably think about, not be able to go to sleep that night.
Yeah. It's a weird world, isn't it? Like you're just putting stuff out there and, it's like people can say whatever they want with no pushback.
Yeah. Like I said, I look at the ratio. It's so positive. I'm just feel really lucky. So, I try to have the thick skin, and I've gotten pretty good at it.
Yeah.
Jay, I have to do a little sidebar here.
Yeah, man.
I haven't brought up how much I love your art.
Ah, dude, I'm honored.
And to get to know you a bit has been an honor as well. And I hope you've noticed, I have, put your painting in some new content lately.
I notice everything, and I'm always grateful, and I try to share it whenever I can on my Instagram. Not that it makes a blip of difference on your like.
Oh no!
Awesome. Yay! I shared your stuff. Woo!
it's awesome, man. So I just wanted to, we went right into me and my stuff, and I wanted to take a moment there to tell you how much I admire your talent, your hard work, and your family too. You guys just, seem so sweet. My wife too. My wife loves your kid pictures and all that. And my wife's a vegan, so I know that's part of your lifestyle too.
She's our peeps.
She hasn't flipped you yet, huh?
Yeah, no. Well, I do lots of vegan. I just wouldn't. I'm not going to label myself, okay? But no. So yeah, I just wanted to, toot your horn there for a moment.
I tell you, that means a lot to me because, like I mentioned at the beginning, I've been watching your videos as a very crappy guitar player for a long time, and the amount of times I've like watched you, as have millions of people, like I just, when I had the opportunity to get you a piece of art, it was my way of being able to thank you, because I've learned so many songs and I've forgotten even more songs thanks to you. And that's actually a really cool little side story. Is I think we got connected like directly. I want to say in real life, but it was actually social media life.
Right.
Through our mutual friends that you mentioned before, Slightly Stoopid. Yeah. So I did the artwork for their latest album, and I've done a bunch of posters for them, and I'm really good friends with Kyle, and the guys are amazing. They're such down-to-earth, talented,
super nice
real
guys.
people. And you were opening for them, which I thought was really cool. I think it was Del Mar, right?
Yeah, no, I just jammed with him.
Oh, jammed with him. Okay.
Yeah, I didn't open for him, but I mean, I would love to do that, but that's not even like what I'm trying to do. But no, I've jammed with them, I don't know, like 5 times now. And it's been amazing. Where I just go up and rip a couple face melters and walk off, and then it's like that's like the most glory you can get as a musician. Honestly, it's even better than playing the full show. Is like to just walk out as a special guest.
Oh yeah,
and then walk off. Like, I mean, that's the coolest thing ever. And to do it with a band like that is like, that's kind of like dream come true stuff. That's the stuff that would be like the vision board stuff. Like, I used to dream about stuff like that before I knew that an even better career for me was waiting. I used to dream that I would get that kind of respect within a community of musicians, and so yeah, those are the sweet little moments. I got to jam with Blues Traveler, and they were a huge part of me picking up a guitar. And so that was a vision board, like where I'm trading licks with John Popper. I mean, I used to lay in bed in high school and envision that, and I did it. So,
dude, they are so sick. I saw them in Randall's Island in the early 90s, and it was I was super, super far back, and I was like, I'm getting to the front, and I'm like I'm a pretty small guy, and I was wasted, and I tapped some guy in the shoulder in the back, like the farthest you can be, and I was like, dude, crowd surf me to the front, and I got tossed around, and I ended up like 3 people back from John Popper, and it was so sick.
Yes. So the Slightly Stoopid thing, though, my connection to them is not Miles or Kyle, actually. It's pretty much like the other guys. I mean, I'm friends with Miles and Kyle now that I've, gotten to know them. I'd say over the last 3 or 4 years, I'm friends with them now. But the band I mentioned, that the reason I was in San Diego, was called Wise Monkey.
Okay.
Wise Monkey had a G in the band who was the trombone player. He's now in Slightly Stoopid, the trombone player, Andy Geyer. So Andy and I were in Wise Monkey together, and that was a big. We were at the time probably, because I was younger in the band, so like I'm the same age as Slightly Stoopid, but the rest, like Wise Monkey was a little bit ahead of them in the years. So I think they were just big down in OB first. Doing stuff. I feel like Miles and Kyle opened for Wise Monkey like acoustic, like when they were young. I mean, maybe even before I was in the band. I don't know how it all happened, but it's all that Ocean Beach scene. And then Wise Monkey played with a band called B-Side Players a lot. And B-Side Players drummer, and so this is like, early 2000s. B-Side Players drummer was Rymo.
Oh my God, no way. He is such a cool dude.
Super cool dude. And so I knew I was in a band with AG. We played a lot with Rymo, and he wasn't in Slightly Stoopid yet. B-Side Players did a tour opening for Slightly Stoopid when they first got their record deal. And during the tour, they were like, oh man, we need a solid drummer like Rymo. So they basically poached Rymo from B-Side Players to become their drummer. And we're talking, this is obviously years and years ago. But so I was already good friends with Rymo before he was in Slightly Stoopid. And then when he got that gig, I was like, oh, I think that's a great gig for you. And so we've been friends, for 20 years almost. And then AG got hired with Slightly Stoopid probably 5 years ago. And AG and I are like very, very close friends. So once AG and Rymo were both in Slightly Stoopid, and then Karl Denson.
I don't know if I know Karl. Maybe by face.
So Karl's a sax player from Grey Boy All Stars and Lenny Kravitz. And now he is in the Rolling Stones for real, actually.
Jeez.
But when he would have downtime, he would actually go on the road with Slightly Stoopid as well. And this guy Karl Denson had hired me for like a 10-day tour a few years back. And then right after that tour, he went on tour with Slightly Stoopid. So now I had 3 allies in Slightly Stoopid, but it wasn't Miles or Kyle. And by the time and everyone looks up to this guy, Karl. Karl's the man. And I think by the time Karl was in there and he was like, yeah, this guy Marty, like, I learned from his videos, but he actually went on tour with me. He did a great job. And then I was invited by the trombone player AG. He invited me to they do a charity thing for that baseball player every year, Slightly Stoopid.
Okay.
He was a Padre, I think.
I don't know anything about
baseball.
Yankee.
He was a Yankee for sure. David Wells.
Okay.
Oh yeah, he has some kind of charity. Slightly Stoopid plays it every year. AG invited me, and actually it was the coolest thing ever. I walked in and Miles and Kyle both greeted me very kindly. I think I'd only met them very briefly before, but they were like, yeah, Karl said you were just on the road with him, and that's awesome. They were just super cool. And I was like, oh, thanks so much and everything. Never talked about jamming with them. I was just, it was a friendly scene, right? So they're playing, it was at the Belly Up in Solana Beach. So it's just this huge, since it's a charity thing, it's like all the like inner circle. It's just like this crazy party scene, and everyone's listening to the music, and it's just, they're just grooving, and I'm watching, and Miles goes, hey, let's get Marty Schwartz up here. And I was like, what? Did he just say my name? And I'm like, shit, I never say no to that.
Yeah.
Right?
And so I ran up there and ripped a solo, and it just was awesome. And then any time now when I've gone to just hang out with them, they always ask me to come jam. So I guess I did something right.
So awesome. And that's like a little boy's dreams coming true right there. Just right.
Especially the audiences, like that Del Mar Fair. I mean, that was like thousands of people. I have done stuff like that before, but it's just, that never gets old. That never gets old.
No, and that band is just, they've been so good to us. Like, we just adore their kindness, and they're humble, and I don't know, they treat us very well. So I can totally picture every moment that you're explaining.
Yeah, nice. So so like my AG, the trombone player, he's like one of my oldest brothers, and then Ryan and Rymo, we've known each other 20 years. So, I go way back with those guys, and then just through, the famous quote about being a musician is just don't be a dick. But by following that mantra, like I've now become friends with Miles and Kyle and their management and all that stuff. So
all just by not being a dick, huh? That's all it took.
I see a good quote here.
Yeah.
That's good advice in general. Whoever's listening, don't be a dick.
Yeah, apparently it's hard for some people.
Yeah, it is, especially in that world for sure. So I want to ask, what do you see as the number one thing that people are requesting from you, like other than covers? Like, I know you're a teacher first. So what's the stuff that you're seeing that you're like, everyone needs help with this?
Yeah. Well, it's definitely, there's more beginners out there than any other demographic of guitar student when you think about it, because a lot of people end up quitting, right?
Yeah.
So no matter what, there's always going to be the most beginners out there that need the help. The better you get, the less help you need from me.
Right.
So it's always going to be right back to the beginner. How do I switch chords fast enough? How can I play a bar chord I can't press hard enough? my hands are too small.
I was just going to say, my hands are too small. What do I do?
No, it's over and over and over. And I'm like, your hands are not too small. Sorry. Not true. I mean, now Hendrix had these super long fingers and did unusual things, but to just play guitar, you can do it. And you can get a smaller guitar. You can literally get a guitar a little bit bigger than a ukulele, but it's 6 strings, and you could do it.
You know what I always think of with that excuse is Tim Reynolds. That's what I think of.
Yes. Yeah. He's like 4 foot tall.
Like 4 foot.
I actually have interacted with Tim Reynolds. I haven't interacted with that many of those famous musicians out there, but Tim Reynolds, I didn't mention this, but when I was in college, I was actually in New Mexico, Santa Fe, New Mexico.
Okay.
And when I was in that corporate band that I mentioned 5 hours ago in this interview, I did work at the music store like 2 days a week, and Tim Reynolds would come in. He lived in Santa Fe at the time. He was in Dave Matthews Band, but his house was in Santa Fe. So he would special order like weird string sets and weird pedals that we'd have to find for him. And I always, worked with him. I restrung his guitars a few times. He was just a quiet dude.
1990s Jay would have moved to New Mexico and taken your job.
Yeah.
Really?
I'm such a huge Dave Matthews fan. I've seen them probably over 40 something times.
Okay.
And I don't know, about 5 or so years ago, I had the pleasure of becoming friends with Stefan, the bassist, and that was just such a cool experience. So we ended up bringing our daughter when she was 10 months old backstage to Dave Matthews, and it was just the trippiest, most surreal experience.
What year was that?
I'm going to say it was probably 2014. I think she was 10 months old.
2014.
So 2014, yeah.
Sweet. Dude, that is amazing. I went mud bogging with Stefan once.
Mud bogging? What is a mud bog? What's mud bogging?
I don't know what this is. Teach us.
Like dune buggy, like
a
mud buggy, like, 4-wheel ATV car kind of thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that same band, Wise Monkey, the guy that made our album, is this guy named Rich Maloney, who ended up becoming Dave's guitar tech for like 5 years. But it's before it was like early 2000s.
Okay.
And so when Wise Monkey was on tour, we got invited to their compound that they had out there where they were working on the Steve Lillywhite album.
Yep.
So whatever year, if you're a big fan, you could figure out what year that was.
Yeah, Lillywhite was, oh my God, you're testing me here. I'm gonna get back to you on that. I forgot the exact
It'll
year.
be in the show notes, ladies and gentlemen.
So we got to actually go to their compound where they had it set up as a studio, and yes, it was cool. Dave Matthews was out of town. Basically, they were on a little break, but Stefan was there, and they had like dune buggies and stuff. So he was super cool. I mean, he wouldn't remember, but he might remember that he dune buggied, but he won't remember me.
Oh man. So back to the advice thing. So skipping over the beginners, because obviously there's a sharp curve of people that quit. So I'm gonna generously put myself in the intermediate range.
Yes.
Can you, or at least at one point I was, can you give some advice to intermediates who kind of got over the slump? Okay, I'm not a beginner, but I still suck too much to say that I'm advanced. What gets someone from that intermediate level to the advanced? What are some things that you see over and over again that people are not doing right or people are screwing up? Give me some advice here.
I would say try, especially now, it's one of the hardest things ever in the society that we live in now, but it's trying to play with other people. That would be the number one recommendation. The other thing is, it's really depends on your goals. Do you know what I mean? Like some people,
I want to be a rock star selling out.
Yeah. Okay. Well, then where you have to talk about your going to the gym and your supplements, because it's really all about looks then at that point.
Shit, I'm screwed.
We got to find Dwayne Johnson's trainer and talk about the carbo loading in between leg day and all that stuff. I mean, it's a different world. No, honestly,
all right, I'll ask more specifically. Okay. So here's hypothetically speaking, There's this artist guy with a beard that does a podcast that always seems to learn the first half of a song or like the most important riff, and then somehow my brain just wanders, and then I want to. I mean, not me. I mean, hypothetically, this guy goes to the next song, learns the main riff, and then I just, how do you get over that? Is that just a mental thing, I assume?
Yeah, that's all mental. It just means that it's not at the top of this person's priority to finish the song. They'd rather move on to the next fun thing. It's therapeutic. So once again, it's about what the goals are. If you feel like, or if this person feels like, if your friend feels like
we'll call him Schmay.
They're not finishing the song all the way through, then you might want to put yourself in a situation where you have to play the whole song.
Right. Okay.
Once again, playing with another person. It could still be casual. I'm not saying this person has to go to like an open mic night or whatever, but try and put yourself in a situation where you do have to play the whole thing. Yeah. That might be a good way to do it.
Like self-imposed incentives.
Yes, I think so. I like that.
So do you think your audience is bigger with people who are just sort of at home YouTubing, teach me how to play guitar? Or do you think it's a lot of people who are also teachers trying to learn to teach? I guess it's mostly beginners, you're saying, right?
Yeah, well, I would say the number one would be hobbyist. It's something that they enjoy doing.
Right.
I have definitely heard from people that are working musicians that had to learn some cover really fast. And they just like watched me on their phone like the night of the gig to just try and figure it out.
Yeah.
So that's really cool. I've also heard from a lot of guitar teachers who, watch my videos with their students. I did just, oh my God, someone just messaged me and said that at their school, they're using Marty as a verb. Like, oh, I Marty'd it last night.
That's when you know you've made it, right?
Absolutely. I have had lots of really fun, random, just things that have popped up. But one that was really cool, this is years ago, but some high schooler sent me a screenshot of like the math test, and the teacher had put my name in the like word problem. Like, if Marty only has 20 guitars,
oh my God,
how many, so like shit like that, it just is the most, it's a sweet, sweet cream on top.
Yeah, that's really, really cool.
Have you had some so speaking of that, have you had some emails that just kind of made you like your head spin? Like, I just got an email from so-and-so that is like listening to or watching my videos. Have there been any?
Yeah. Or we'll go beyond email though. Like I just did a live stream last Saturday. Every Saturday I do a live stream, and I found out that Joe Rogan mentioned me in his podcast.
Get out, dude.
Yeah.
No way.
That's cool.
Yeah. So, and it was just in passing. It wasn't like he spent a ton of time talking about it, but they were talking about how his buddy learned from me and can play really well now.
But just to realize like you're on the radar of certain people has to be so humbling. Like that's
incredible. Well, the as far as vision boards, again, I used to fantasize about getting to hang out with Tenacious D.
Yes.
Before YouTube existed, I would think about that, and then I did. So, and it's all because of this YouTube thing. So
that's our second Tenacious D reference on this podcast. It's a very funny thing. Someone else was talking about Tenacious D. It's just like a funny, I haven't discussed Tenacious D in a decade. So the fact that it's come up twice is very funny.
It's amazing. I'd say I got to, like, the Boston Red Sox invited me to their batting practice warm up. Wow. So they could say hi because they have curfews when they're on the road, and so they can't like go out and stuff, and so they all like learn guitar on the iPad.
That's cool.
Yeah. I taught, and I'm still like actually friends now with Jason Statham, the British
Get Out.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
So that's probably like the biggest one. I mean, Jack Black's big too, but
wow, that's huge. That's so trippy. I mean, you've got to be, I would imagine you're more recognized than a lot of the bands on the radio or whatever the kids are listening to music on nowadays.
Well, I mean, my kids are older than your kids, but I'll tell you, like, my daughter who's almost 14, I mean, YouTube is definitely the rock star of their generation for
Yeah.
sure. And I don't mean me, because like they could care less about the old guy teaching old fogey songs. But if she says, "Oh, my dad's a YouTuber," I mean, everyone's impressed with that.
Yeah, isn't that funny? Such a different world.
Totally, yeah. But it really is. YouTube is like when you ask little kids what they want to do, a lot of them will, a lot of them will say YouTube.
Yeah, my kids want to watch people open things, but we
Oh,
don't let
I
them do
know.
that anymore.
I know.
Taking a look in the future, so what would be on your vision board now?
I say this a lot currently, is if I can just continue to do what I'm doing right now, if I could just keep it where it is now, I would be as happy as can be. But so the vision board is really like sustaining.
What about like Wild and Juicy?
Wild and Juicy is, well, there is stuff, some stuff I won't mention on the podcast. So there are definitely Wild and Juicy things I'm working on. But it's all based in education,
Okay.
So my calling, I know my calling, right? So if there's just ways to grow it bigger, then I'm going to do everything I can to do it. But the calling I found, which is teaching people guitar, it makes them happy. I'm able to bring happiness and make a living at it, doing like what my passion is and getting to pass it on. It's just the best. So I'm really trying to keep it going. But there's some things, there's some future endeavors that I'm working on.
Okay, it's not like any famous bands or any kind of thing, place to say, nothing like that.
No.
So, going back to this hypothetical guy that wants to be better at guitar, so
yeah,
he's like, I've got him where I want him. Here we go.
Stay still, Marty. I got some questions for you. Do you have any kind of go-to advice as far as if you had to schedule a student, an ideal student, and say you should spend X amount of time learning theory, practicing scales, learning your pentatonics, as opposed to just having fun and learning a song or noodling around? Do you have anything that you've seen that works better than other things as far as getting your chops, still having fun, not getting bored, and just making that whole process fun while still kind of improving your skills?
Man, it's tough. I will say I've never been the guitar teacher that had the super regimented, you have to follow paths A, B, C, D, in this order, specifically with these fingers, specifically this way. And some people prefer that, but I'm not that guy.
Yeah.
But I will say there's a difference between playing and practicing. And my advice of what I've seen work and what has worked for me and the best students that I've had, always the ones that are most driven, just do it. And that's never even a question, because they're just so thirsty for the knowledge. But I would say tiny little goals, and you keep achieving them. It's just like when I started Marty Music with 0 videos, I'm like, okay, this is going to be a giant, castle, but it starts with one little brick, and here's that brick, boom, but
Yeah.
Tiny little goals, like playing a song all the way through to the end. That's goal 1. That's not that hard of a goal, but then you do it, and then pick out another one, because it's all what you want out of it anyway. There's no one thing that we're all trying to get from it. Some people, if you just wanted to be in a band more than anything, I would tell you immediately to start playing bass. If you wanted to, win over some girl you had a crush on, find out what her favorite band is and learn that song.
Dating advice for Marty. There you go.
Yeah, but he knows his audience, and those are the guys that are trying to learn guitar.
Yeah,
I'm sure that's
I don't mean to be
3 reasons.
I don't mean to be crass, but I definitely get a little giddy when I see the comment, "Marty, you got me laid."
Yes. Yeah. I'm sure it's happening. That's for sure.
Isn't that what it's all about?
Yeah, well, we won't go down that road.
I'm just saying, like, someone's volunteering to tell me that I helped them.
Yes.
Score.
Well, I have another question
epic.
too. Like, do you think guitar, like, in your opinion, if someone's just like, well, I also want to learn all these other instruments, is guitar like the starting point for you for most people? Like, do you tell people learn guitar first?
Yeah, once again, that relates to me not being that super regimented, strict method guy. I would say, what do you want to play?
Yeah.
Play that. Like, you don't have to, like, because the question I'm thinking of that's related to your question is, should I learn on acoustic first before I play electric?
Yeah.
And I would say, well, what do you want to play? Do you want to play electric or acoustic? Like, what gets you excited, like, when you think of your, like, heroes or whatever? Oh, electric. I love AC/DC. All right, well, then get an electric. Let's just go for it right then and there.
I think it's so much easier nowadays too, because like when I was first learning, like tablature wasn't even like I'm sure it was a thing, but it wasn't really like it is now. And like there's so many all these different crazy things. Can you talk about maybe some of the tools of the trade? Like if you're learning, are there any either apps, or should you use a metronome, or like little kind of hacks and tips for people on ways to, while they're learning a song or even something that you're teaching them, is it good to have a metronome? Are there apps that you like for electric guitar and amp or anything like that?
Yeah. Well, I am launching my own app.
Ooh.
Okay, called the Slow Rider. And if you have an Apple Music account or Spotify, which I use Spotify, you can put the song into the app and it'll slow it down and loop sections of it so you can practice along with it.
Sick. When is that going to be
out? It's out already,
okay.
But it's like it's more like it's still in the kind of beta, but it is actually, if you looked up Slow Rider, you'd see it. But it's still, I'm working out a couple of bugs on it.
Okay.
But by the time this interview is out there, I'm sure it'll work well enough. I use it to learn songs.
Wow.
So that's called the Slow Rider. And then another tool, a looper pedal, which is just so great for your rhythm. I mean, metronome, yes, but metronome's a little more boring and people tend to get frustrated with the metronome. If you have a looper, you're definitely working on the same skills, which is your timing. But it's a little more fun because you can kind of like jam with yourself, especially since nowadays less people are like actually getting together to play guitar.
They're just playing with YouTube.
Yeah,
well, which is better for you anyway.
That's what I'm for.
If it gets you laid, it works.
Yeah.
Hey,
Whatever.
Well, I wanted to ask, how often is it that you when you actually get into one-on-one conversations with people and you're like, you actually just need to go get an easier guitar? Like, are there people that just get things that are just so beyond what they're ready to do?
I feel like that was a much bigger problem when I used to actually teach guitar, like one-on-one. I would see that and know right away, but now I have no way of knowing.
Yeah.
Okay.
You know what I mean? So it's just, it's basically, people ask me constantly about gear and it's usually out of context for me. Like it's like, if I don't see it or I can't play it, I'm not really sure what to say.
Got it.
Do you make yourself available for one-on-one? Like if like some crazy scenario, like, I don't know, like Obama's daughter was like, yeah, I want you to teach me guitar. Like, you'd be like, all right, well, it's $4,000 an hour. Like,
I'm coming to Harvard.
Are there scenarios where you're like, sure, I'll do it. Why not?
Yeah, Jason Statham.
Yeah,
oh, no shit. Okay.
Yeah, so his assistant like tracked me down and said, would you be willing to give him some lessons? He specifically wants it to be you. And I was like, wow, I'm so flattered. Yeah, I'll try and make that work. It was up in Beverly Hills, big shock. But yeah, so that's like pretty tough on my schedule with the amount of content I'm making.
Yeah.
But so for something like that, I was just like, oh, dude, I am there. Like,
yeah.
I'm so want to see what this is going to be like.
Yeah.
And it was not disappointing. It was actually super cool. So
did you learn some karate kicks or how to dismantle a gun or anything cool like that?
No, but no, the only funny, I mean, no, not at all. But what I could say, a couple funny things about it. One is, he's married and they have two little like dachshunds, like little wiener dogs. So he has these like two cutesy little wimpy little dogs, and I was teaching him and they like started to bark out the window, and he was like, knock it off, but it was just funny to hear like an action movie star like raise his voice,
like ready to attack
at the little wiener dogs,
yeah.
So that was cool. And then the other and that's totally benign, right? I mean, he's a sweet guy.
Awesome. Yeah.
But the other one was he specifically reached out to me out of the blue, was like, Marty, my it's hard to not want to like imitate his accent, Marty, my dad's in town. He's a singer. You got to come, we'll play, So he was so excited for me to meet his dad, who was a crooner. Like his dad was actually like a professional singer. And his brother, I guess, plays guitar as well. So I'd teach him something, and he's a beginner, but he'd be like, oh, I can't wait to show my brother that I know this and stuff like that. So it just seemed like he was like a cool family guy. But yeah, so his dad came. And it was classic because his dad's like the 80-year-old version of him. And his dad was like, super strong, kind of Cockney accent. He was wearing a black turtleneck with like a gold medallion, shaved head, just like Jason Statham.
Yeah.
And so I'm sitting in the middle, and Jason Statham's on my right, his dad's on the left, and we're just like all playing songs and he's singing, and it was pretty wild.
Oh my God. You're like to just have like a camera on the wall right now absorbing this.
It was sick. Yeah. And then also I've jammed and hung out with Sinbad quite a bit.
Sinbad. Wow. No kidding.
He's super into music. So that's been fun.
That's one step away from Ellen.
Yeah. Right. And my mom always is like, oh, you got to be on Ellen, Marty. And I'm not even looking for that kind of stuff, but what I would definitely go on though is Chopped. I love that show.
Oh, do you? Yeah, we don't. I've seen it before, but we don't.
I'm not like it's a cooking show. I'm not I'm not like a good chef or anything, but it's a improvising show. You like have a mystery basket with random ingredients in it, and you have to like turn it into a dish. And so it's on the Food Network.
Okay, when they have an episode of just like random professionals that are best at their craft,
yeah, well, they had like an internet, internet blogger episode.
Yeah, there you go.
Most of the time it's real chefs on it, but they'll do like, they did a celebrity one and Sinbad was on it. That's why I'm thinking of it.
Well, so that leads us into like our final question, Marty.
All right.
Is what would you do if I put you back in your childhood kitchen? What would the first thought be? What's your memory?
Oh, my mom's a great cook. So I just think of my mom cooking stuff. And
what was your favorite dish?
She made like these Swedish meatballs that were awesome.
All right.
I haven't had them in years and years and years, but I do think of that.
It's funny. I remember Swedish meatballs was the one food that I used to like spit into my napkin and give it to my dog.
Dude, that's so classic. Yeah, I'm familiar with that technique.
Yes.
So, Marty, let's give some shout outs to where people can find you, what projects you'd like to let people know about.
Sure. 100% of my focus is on Marty music. So anytime you type in Marty music into anything, I'll be there ready to bug you. MartyMusic.com, Marty Music on YouTube, Marty Schwartz on Instagram. I have a lot of fun with Instagram, actually.
Yeah, your Instagram is awesome. I love it, especially the live stuff you do has been great. And on behalf of like the millions and bazillions of virtual students, like thank you for all that you're doing.
Thanks.
Like I said, I've learned and forgotten many songs from you, as have millions of others, and it's just really great to connect with you, man.
Thank you so much, man. And like I said, I love what you're doing, and hopefully, I know you're on the East Coast, but hopefully we'll be in the same room at some point here in the near future.
Yeah, we'll be back over there soon for sure.
Cool.
I'll practice my chops and we can do a jam with Jason. With his wiener dogs.
Well, I can't wait to actually hang out.
Well, send love to your family and give a high five to your vegan wife for us.
I will.
See you, Marty. Later,
right,
brother.
Man. Talk soon.
Hello. That was pretty cool.
Yeah, Marty's awesome. It's been great to get to know him and to have that much time to talk to him after watching as a viewer on YouTube and a student on YouTube, it was really cool to get to know the man behind the YouTube channel.
I know. I think that's actually the coolest part, is that he's the same person. There's like no, like he acts as though he has a persona on his YouTube channel, but that's just him.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
it's
totally.
pretty cool. It's like he's like got this goofy, easy way to like just learn from him because he's so gentle and just kind of
He's
teaches
from
you cool
San Diego.
stuff.
I think that goes with it.
Well, it does, but I also just like, you don't want to learn from someone who's just super like, I'm too cool for you, or I know it all, or whatever. And he also chooses really cool music to teach. So
That's true.
that helps.
What a weird world we live in that you can scale up to that magnitude teaching guitar.
I know. And like going from, I think it's so cool to see his actual evolution as things changed at the exact same time. Like he was like, how can I make money teaching guitar? Oh, I'll just go into people's homes and teach them how to play guitar. And then slowly YouTube came around and he was like, well, I'll just do it on there. And then it just freaking exploded. Like it's crazy to see the evolution through his career.
It really is. And I think it was cool as a father hearing how him becoming a dad and having those pressures really kind of forced him into finding this solution, and how it happened really organically by just putting up a couple videos to help his students. He kind of fell into something.
I know, it is interesting. A lot of the people we interview, that seems to be a common thread, that it's like, let's make these like massive shifts and changes right when we have children. And it seems idiotic at the time because you're like, why would I change my whole life right when I have kids? But it makes so much sense when you really think about it.
Yeah. Well, this was a good one. I was really stoked to talk to Marty. I hope you guys really enjoyed it.
Yeah, I think that's all we have to say about that.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Marty. Thank you guys for listening. We have some really cool ones coming up. We have a couple musicians coming up. So if you are a musician listening to this, stick with us and click subscribe. If you're not a musician, that's okay. I think there's a lot of lessons to take from this anyway.
Because we're not musicians, for the record.
Hey, now, I try to be a musician.
I'm not.
Before
Whatever
kids,
the
I was more of
opposite
a musician. Before I broke my finger, I played guitar.
Yes.
All right, guys. Well, thank you so much.
Thanks, guys. We hope you loved that episode. If you did love it and could give us some love on iTunes, that would be amazing. You can leave a review and we will give you a shout out at some point on this podcast.
Also, if you guys can follow us on social media, we would love to hear from you. We are on pretty much every social media platform at Shifting Perceptions Podcast, which is the same as our website, shiftingperceptionspodcast.com. We look and reply to all comments, so please share with your friends, tag us. We appreciate all the love.
And don't forget that all of our guests also see all these comments, so I'm sure if you want to just have a space you can reach out, these are the places to do it. We also want to give some love to our amazing photographer that has done all of our photos so far,
Kevin Rigby.
His website is wavelightstudio.com.
And also our really good friend John Harvey, who did the music for our podcast. You can find him at Instagram at Harvey Wallbanger. So that's our little rolling credits. We will be back next week.